So we're back with a review on the session with my home group. I believe they've met at this stage now 4 times, and this is going to be the 3rd session that I'm reviewing with you. So the home group has found 2 of the paintings that are missing for the Hogwarts. They found Good Queen Bess. Now, of course, that was the one that I moved. I wanted it to be behind the points counters, but I had kind of messed that up myself. And kind of given them wonky clues. So I did move Good Queen Bess over to the grounds and the chessboard. They also found Tristan the Terrible in the greenhouses. So that's where we left off, and they were really proud of what they had found. And they had initially attempted to go to their head of house. Her name is Septima. Septima is who I promoted to be the head of Slytherin. And they had initially tried to go, but they weren't really satisfied with how she had reacted when they told her about the missing paintings. They just didn't feel like she cared enough. Her personality is just really laid back, but that's what you get. Instead, they decided to go to Hagrid. So here, they had been at the Triwizard chess maze. They had been inside there. I didn't make them go through the maze when they got down there. They just kind of did it. And then they moved over to the Quidditch Stadium. That's where Hagrid had been. They had been doing repairs to the Quidditch field. He encouraged them to help with the repairs whenever they had time, but he did escort them over to Headmistress McGonagall's office. Now, just as a side note, most of the activity that happened this session was completely unplanned. So there was... most of it had nothing to do with any of the notes that I typed in here. I just had to kind of wing it most of the night, which was fine. I think a lot about Dungeons & Dragons even when I'm not typing, so I have an idea of how, teachers act and things like that. So I had kind of known that they were going to go see Professor McGonagall anyways, so I had been thinking about what she'd be like when they met her. So while Hagrid was escorting them to Professor McGonagall's office, he did say the words constant vigilance, which is the password to get the stairs to move up to her office. But the players didn't end up catching that it was the password, so that'll come to play later on. Their conversation went pretty smoothly with McGonagall. She took the paintings they found. She was really thankful that they had been looking for it. She just mentions that she has a little bit too much on her plate in order to go look for paintings, despite them being pretty expensive. And then together they ended up speculating where some of the other paintings might be. But again, my players were the ones that were able to come up with the answers. She just kind of gave them a hint. They had been asking about the painting that was the unnamed scamp. And I have him in the trophy room, because people are memorialized on trophies. Their names are put on there. And that would be kind of a counter to never being remembered. So she mentioned, there's got to be a place where we put people that are memorialized, and they automatically jumped to the trophy room, which was really great. They came up with the answer themselves. One of my players, while they were discussing this, though was having a hard time, just staying focused on the discussion at hand. Just in general, he kind of does that. So instead of paying attention, he decided that he wanted to go poke around the office and see what kind of cool knickknacks he could find around the office. As a DM, I hadn't really considered what was in the office at the time. I remembered that Dumbledore had the pensive, of course, and that weird time turner thing that I don't know if we ever found out what it did. And of course the Phoenix, but that wouldn't still be there. That was Dumbledore's. But other than that, they just kind of loosely describe that there's a bunch of weird stuff in there, and they never go into detail. So I had him poke the pensive and the time turner thing that I remembered. Oh, McGonagall also offered them cookies. She had done this, I think, in the movies at some point too. But again, my players were just really suspicious. They're just more, I guess, suspicious of all of the teachers in the room offering them food or whatever. So they were hesitant to enjoy them. They were like, oh, I wonder if she's, laced these cookies with something. And as the DM, of course, if after hearing their worries about lacing the cookies with something, I instantly decided that was a good idea. So the player that went and touched things, he'd touch the pensive, and then McGonagall would be like, don't touch that, dear. He ended up rolling a good investigation, though, when he was looking at the time turner. And I thought to myself, well, it would be kind of cool if that time turner was somehow linked with the moving staircase. The moving staircase is just so weird. Like, I had a really hard time figuring out how to make it function in Dungeons and Dragons. Like, how would it decide where to bring people? To what places? What makes it decide to bring them to the right place or the wrong place? So I ended up making a chart here on how it decides on where to bring people. And so the character that's poking everything is a stargazer. I thought it would be kind of fun to have him be like the listener of the enchantments. He's attached to the stars, and the stars tell him things, and he's good at divination. So like it's kind of cool to think that he would be able to hear the enchantments of the castle too, especially because he has a hard time paying attention to like dialogue that's going on that gives him something to do in the room that the players are currently in. So far that's worked really well. He ended up hearing the magical logic patterns of these stairs through the time turners and was really weirded out. He tried to communicate with the group, hey, the stairs think weird things, and everybody's like, you're weird. So together the players and McGonagall thought the unscammed should go to the trophy room, as I mentioned. And so they went over there, and they had to get permission, though, to go over there, because it was in the area that is blocked off. The bridge is blocked off. So McGonagall was like, oh, well, the cookies that you just ate have the ability to provide you with permission. It works much better if they're ingested. So she laced the cookies with permission slips, basically. The player that didn't want to eat the cookies. Now, I had no idea why this player didn't want to eat the cookies. It didn't make any sense to me. But they were like, can't you just cast the spell on me? Why do I have to eat this cookie in order to get the permission? I mean, and that's fair. Why would she put it in the cookies and not cast it? So I made some hullabaloo about, this spell works better when it is ingested and it runs through your whole body. It gives, the permission is more spread out. But she did offer to cast it on him, and it would just be less consistent. Sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. So he ended up going with that option, taking the cookie. I was like, whatever, do whatever you want. So they wandered around. So after they left McGonagall's office, they went over to the moving staircase because they were going to use that in order to get up to the third floor. And my player that had heard the moving staircase was like, "Oh, I want to listen to see if I can get them to bring us where I want, to go." And so he ends up rolling again, pretty good. I think he rolled a good check on the stairs. And the stairs were like I'll take you outside. We're going to take you outside. Yes, third floor has a place that goes outside because the stairs really wants to put them outside to enjoy the weather on the weekend. So, but because the armory has a big gaping hole in it, it's considered outside. So it totally worked out. They wandered around the armory and the trophy room and found the statue of the one-eyed witch there. Let's see. There we go. So they are here in the trophy rooms, and they really, really wanted to get past this one-eyed witch. Pretty bad. And if you guys remember, Hagrid spoke the words constant vigilance to get the stairs to move. That was also the password for the one-eyed witch. But the players couldn't remember. And they tried to persuade the one-eyed witch to, like, give them clues and stuff like that. She just wasn't having it, so. They also found the storage closet that leads to the Sorcerer's Stone dungeon. This had a little panel to get into the trophy cases. They ended up finding the picture, which had been shrunk down in one of the large trophy cups. And so the players tried to ask the unnamed scamp painting his name, but he wasn't interested in providing his name. They asked him a few other things too, but they were strangely fixated on this guy's name. They desperately wanted to know what it was. As a DM, I don't have a name for him. He wasn't important, but isn't it funny how the players just get so curious about the most random things? As the attempts at gaining his name went on, I was like, I'm going to have to make a backstory for this guy, aren't I? Because, I mean, when they try to turn in the painting to McGonagall, you know they're going to bombard her with questions about who this, unnamed scamp is. The whole point is that he's not remembered. But, whatever. So if you listen to the other sessions, reviews for my other group, you know that the second group did find the trapdoor leading to the dungeon as well. And they had used like a gallon of alchemist fire to clear away the devil's snare. This group decided to use a tornado spell called Ventus to suck all of the rotting plant matter out. This was a pretty good idea, aside from the fact that plant matter was thrown all over the storage room, including on themselves. So my alchemist ended up getting splatted in the face with a bunch of rotting plant matter. Very gross. They also had a really hard time figuring out how to jump down into the trapdoor. I mean, it was only 10 feet down. But 10 feet in Dungeons and Dragons means you have to see if you land right, otherwise you'll take damage. So my players just really, really didn't want to try jumping down. I mean, most of them aren't athletic. But even my athletic person wouldn't jump down. So the player, my stargazer that just likes to touch and poke everything, decides to jump down. And he's the healer, so it's not like he has athletics. So he ends up taking damage from his jump. And he gets down there and he finds the riddle for the dungeon. Up here, and now some of my players from my home group actually listened in on the other group, so they knew the answer to this riddle, which ended up being a problem because then they couldn't help the other people solve it. So I had to end that practice. They weren't allowed to watch anymore. But they did end up getting the answer. They did fine. They tried grabbing spears from the armors because they thought the answer might be a spear. They did end up using the tarps from the storage closet in order to make a rope to go down. So they all made it down in there. They figured out it was icicles for the riddle. And then they continued on. And this secret passage, of course, went to the kitchens. This group, actually, though, when they got to the icicles, they were smart and they were like, hey, if we make some of the icicles fall before we cross, it'll be easier to cross. And it was. So they attacked some of the icicles, made them fall down, and then they were able to get across easier. At this stage, they made their way back to their common room, and they decided that, again, they'd like to go out tonight through the secret passage. They did have permission now to go a lot of different places. They were able to get past the gargoyle, and they also have permission to, not get caught, technically, by Vinda, though she didn't, give them a permission slip pass to wander around after curfew. That would be crazy. But so they were like, okay, yeah, let's go. But one of my characters really didn't want to. She was like, no, we should stay in. We should do our homework and get ready for classes tomorrow. But they all used their persuasion. And they were like, no, we all have to go. This is really important. We're going to go to the owlery. So she was like, fine, I'll come. And before the players actually left the icicle passage, they did notice this. The place seemed to be lit by softly glowing pebbles. They realized they could pick the pebbles up and keep some of them, which was excellent. They have the spell Lumos, but like an upgraded version of it, Luminos. And the spell light can be cast on an object. So this is actually would be a good trading item. Or, I had kind of designed them to light the passage in other dark areas of the game. So I'm not really sure what all my players are going to be doing with those. But they picked them up, which is great. But so they did decide to go out into the after curfew world here. And they went through their secret passage here, and then that leads up to the ballroom up here. And as a DM, I'm thinking to myself, man, they just did so much already this weekend. I need to put something that's kind of distracting, some sort of event, so that they realize, okay, it's time to pass the time and go, into your next set of lectures. Don't just run around willy-nilly. So again, this like I said, most of the session was just kind of made up as we went, and that's the case with the ballroom too. In the ballroom, I decided it would be cool to have another ghost party. So a bunch of ghosts got together. Now these, again, are different ghosts. They're not ones that have come to haunt Hogwarts, I guess, hang around Hogwarts the entire time. They just kind of show up sometimes and dance in memory of what used to be. And they had been waiting for a band to start performing here on the stage. So when the players emerged from the stage, all of the ghosts turned to them. They looked pretty hostile. My players were great. They figured out immediately that these ghosts are probably waiting for some sort of music. So my performer character decided to, start striking up a song, and my stargazer character joined in. They did great. Funny to note that they didn't touch the piano. I guess the piano had scarred them for life, even though the piano would have been an excellent choice in this circumstance. And one of my other characters went and dug around underneath the stage and found a trumpet. And my other two players, I got 5 of them, decided that they wanted to sneak across the ballroom and attempt to exit and go get Professor Vinda to see if she can soothe or figure out the ghost issue so they can get through. So when they started to perform and the person with the trumpet joins in, they rolled a 1. And the trumpet sounds were so bad. And this angered the ghosts. They were very, very mad, and they turned hostile. So combat started from that horrible trumpet beat, and we had 2 players that were in the middle of the ballroom floor here. And they hadn't made it to the door yet. So, but they stuck with it. They decided to keep going. So this is the image that I had for the ballroom. They decided to keep her performing to see if they could bring the ghosts back in. They were able to get about half of them to pay attention to the music again and start dancing. But we still had some that were hostile. So the players ended up reaching the door after taking some hits, and they were opening it. It was locked, so they used Alohomora to unlock it and open it up. Now, I was like, well, what would happen if these ghosts saw the door open? Are these ghosts trapped in here in some way? Would they see that as an interesting form of freedom? Would they get angry that the party is being disrupted? I thought it would be interesting if the ghosts wanted to escape. So I made, the behavior of the ghosts completely change once the door opened up. And they all stopped what they were doing. They stopped dancing. They all looked at the door. And the players are like, oh, no, something's happening. So all the ghosts began using their moves to make their way towards the door. My other player was like, I got to run out there and I got to get the teacher. And the teacher had already been on her way. She heard that horrible trumpet hoot. And it started making her way over. And so she ended up getting in there. Some of my players took a few more hits, but Vinda, the teacher, put a fake band up on stage, an illusory one that could play music, and all of the ghosts turned unhostile. Vinda then escorted the players back out. And I'm thinking, well, at this stage, what would Vinda say? Like, this is the second time she's caught them in the ballroom, but she did give them, permission to go exploring at night. So I had to make some snap decisions on the encounter, and sometimes when you do that as a DM, you don't really remember, that this is going to affect the NPCs or, like, the circumstances you've already created. So, Vinda, I ended up going with the fact that Vinda told them it was only the first week, like exactly what I was thinking as a DM, right? And that it's Sunday night and the players should be preparing for classes the next day, not wandering out late at night. And she confessed, she's like, she's also new to the castle. She doesn't know when the spirits are hanging around. She doesn't know why some of them are turning hostile. She hardly knows anything about this culture of the ghosts in the castle at this stage, and it's really unsafe for students to go wandering around when, they don't know all of this. So she encouraged that. She was like, I'm definitely in my office on Friday and Saturday nights, but you guys were lucky that I was here on Sunday and I had forgotten something down here, so, she was like, just make sure that Sunday nights you stay indoors and prepare for classes the next morning. That angle seemed to work really well with the group. Nobody seemed frustrated, I guess, about that. And, well, of course, aside from the character that really wanted to stay in the common room and they all used persuasion, to get her to come out, she was really mad. She was like, we got in trouble again. This is everybody's fault for doing it. And she was like, I'm just not going to talk to any of you. So, I mean, it was in character, of course. She might have been a little miffed outside of character too, because, you can get mad at your other players for doing dumb things and is stopping you from solving mysteries or gaining information, what have you. So, yeah, that was their session. I just had a session with them last night as well, so I will review that in a different video.